Well, hello, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is David Hunt from DWS, and we are an Oracle Gold partner specialized in JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to today's webinar. I'm very pleased to have Manuel Neira on the call. Manuel is Senior Director of Business Development at Oracle, and he will take us through the key announcements Oracle made at Quest Collaborate recently. And I'm particularly grateful to Manuel for joining us today because he's actually on holiday. So a big thank you to Manuel. Now, to support today's webinar, DWS has written a new white paper on the topic of Release 9.2, and it's called Get Current, Stay Current. And this will be available to all attendees should you wish to receive it. Now, in today's presentation, Manuel will kick off by sharing with you the key messages from the Oracle announcements from the recent Quest Collaborate conference. I will then review the findings of research within the JD Edwards user base that carried out by DWS a year ago. And this highlights some of the previous barriers to adopting a code current strategy. We will discuss the pros and cons of staying code current and the implications it has for the digital enterprise, both in terms of return on investment and potential disruption to the business. We'll also lend support to the business case for accelerating the move to 9.2. We'll look in more detail at the role of testing in a JD Edwards change event, whether this be a major upgrade or a smaller code current event, and we'll explore ways in which better test planning and automation can reduce the amount of effort required to get current and stay current. Finally, we will look to the future, and we will preview how a program of continuous delivery would change the way organizations deliver JD Edwards projects, making them smaller, faster, and smarter. We'll have a few minutes at the end to take any questions that you may have on any aspect of what you've heard today. So if you'd like to raise any questions, please use the questions pane in the dashboard to the right-hand side of your screen. So that I'd like to hand over to Manuel to take us through the recent announcements.
Thank you very much, David, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. It is my pleasure to be here with you in conjunction with DWS to give you some information as David just described. There's lots going on within JD Edwards. We've made some very interesting announcements in the last few months, so I will cover those in some particular key ones, as well as long-term value and viability of the JD Edwards product in the subsequent slides. But before I jump into that, I would like to take a little bit of a view back to what our traditional model collectively in terms of us delivering new software capabilities to our customers, and also on your side as customers, what your adoption kind of pattern and model has been. So traditionally, those models have required customers to upgrade their systems, and many times big upgrades to their systems to be able to have access to new features, new capabilities, technology uptake, certifications, and just for general maintenance. And as traditionally, what we've heard from customers, as soon as there's mention of an upgrade, there's obviously some concern about time, about the effort required to undergo a significant upgrade, the cost, and of course, and most importantly, probably the overall general disruption that it means to the business. So as customers, we understand that this has always been a balancing act, right, of value, the value that you receive from the upgrade versus the cost to be able to actually execute the upgrade. So, and when I say that the value, right, it's getting through, traditionally it's been getting through that upgrade so that you're in position to be able to uptake those capabilities. And in our discussions with customers that we pulled across the globe, this has been a general concern, right, that overall customers, yes, want new feature capabilities, want fast return on investment for those new capabilities, but want those upgrades, if those are going to continue, to be faster, more streamlined, and less risky. So, that's been part of our mission, and this is what we've announced, is really predicated on really looking at the value that we're delivering to you when you net it out as a customer, and really not making upgrades really focused around a ticking time clock, right, in terms of the support horizon for a particular release. Next slide, please, David. So what we've announced is that we're adopting a new release model for the JD Edwards EnterpriseOne product line. So what we mean is, as opposed to traditional upgrades or traditional release models where every 3 to 3.5 years, right, throughout the tenure that we've been part of Oracle, right, so 12 plus years, we've had a major release every 3 to 3.5 years with new product capabilities, enhanced modules, new technologies, et cetera, et cetera. So we're moving away from that as a result of the feedback that we've received from you, our partners, or excuse me, our customers, and of course our partners, but primarily the feedback that we've looked at has been our customers. And what we're doing is new product innovations and features will be delivered as updates. You might hear the term feature packs discussed, which are smaller digestible chunks of bundles of new features that are easier to manage and consume by you, the customer. And what we mean by consuming is not only being able to download it and deploy it to your JD Edwards instances, but also be able to more quickly implement those. And then again, with the overall objective being compressing that return on investment timeline. So what this means is that customers do not need to wait several years before new capabilities can be packaged and delivered through a major release. Customers can incrementally add these new capabilities as they need it, when they have a need, and have the required bandwidth to adopt them. So in the past, going back to reference to the prior model, when I said a moment ago that we would release major releases every 3 to 3.5 years, that was almost it was an artificial timeline that we would set. Internally, we would say, okay, 3.5 years feels about the right time that we need to make a new release available and what have you. And some of those innovations that our development engineering team produced were sitting there in their release waiting for that release vehicle to be made available. What I'm saying that we're moving over to now to this continuous delivery model is more that as we develop those capabilities, we will bundle those up and make them available to you in manageable packages, bundles, and so forth. So while we're doing this, you're going to see a more frequent cadence, of these packages being made available to you, but you will have the choice and control in terms of what you adopt, what you update, when you update them, and then what the big thing being is that you won't have this big hurdle of a costly, disruptive upgrade being on your horizon. We provided tools and will continue to provide tools to help evaluate business needs, as well as to help you as a customer plan, manage, and execute these update cycles. Furthermore, to ensure that customers continue to get return on their investments for a long time, JD Edwards 9.2 release, we announced some very exciting news about the timeline horizon for that release, which I'll cover in subsequent slides, but that's certainly a part of the equation. So just want to tease that for a moment, is in terms of 9.2 release, you actually see it on the slide here, we're extending support at least until 2028. So our continuous release or continuous delivery model will be the 9.2 release. So that will be the release where we make continued innovations, enhancements, improvements, make available new technologies for JD Edwards, and so on and so forth, will be on the 9.2 release. Next slide, please. So what we've, organization, if I give you a little bit of an internal view into our development organization, the JD Edwards development organization, we have been running an agile release methodology for quite some time, and which allows our teams to quickly, come together, develop new capabilities, deliver them quickly, accommodate and as well as address customer needs, as well as having new transformational capabilities in our product. But that's one half of the equation, right? In terms of us not only developing it quickly, agilely, and also making it available to you as a customer in manageable chunks that you can install, deploy, and implement. The other half of the equation includes our customers, you adopting a mindset towards your business systems, right? A new mindset in terms of, and what I mean by that is the new model, you don't think of release numbers anymore because we're going on this continuous delivery model where we are committed, Oracle's committed to continue developing and investing in JD Edwards. And you don't need to think about release numbers anymore. The focus should be instead the business value and the features that we're delivering in those capabilities. And as I said a moment ago, we will continue delivering those on a regular cadence so that you see more features, more capabilities, more technologies available to you. And that should drive your decision on which feature pack, which update you take that contain the features that you are looking for to address business needs. Furthermore, this will be done on a rapid cadence so that you don't have to wait several years before the new version that contains the enhancement that you're looking for is made available. You now are empowered to do it now and whenever or wherever your business demands it. So with JD Edwards, again, you have choice and control on how and when you do it, but now you don't have these artificial, major releases that are out there that will just artificial delivery mechanisms. They'll be available as soon as we develop the capabilities, completed our development cycle, and they'll be there for you to consume. Next slide, please, David. So if I go back to a little bit of the history, I talked about when Oracle bought PeopleSoft and JD Edwards, it announced a couple of policies, right? It announced Applications Unlimited, which is the policy that's still in effect, and you'll continue to see that policy continue to be in effect, which promises continued enhancements into the acquired products, JD Edwards being one of those. So that was one policy. The other policy was the lifetime support policy, which talked about the standard support horizon that Oracle provided for its new product releases, right, for the acquired products and its legacy products. And that's traditionally been 5 years of premier support from GA, and then an additional and optional 3 years of extended support for a total of 8 years from the time a release was made generally available. And Oracle's followed that pattern. We've aligned to that pattern in terms of our cadence for major releases in the past. But what we're moving towards now is, like I said, at Collaborate of this year, to Collaborate 2017 in Las Vegas, we announced a continuous delivery model with the JD Edwards mantra being, saying get current, stay current, because there are no plans, necessarily to go with our current release 9.2 for that to follow the 5+3 traditional model that we've talked about. What we're planning on is, and we'll talk more on the subsequent slide, we've extended the support horizon for the 9.2 release significantly out into the future, and we'll continue to evaluate on that on a yearly basis and push it out as we develop new capabilities. So in terms of another release cycle, in a moment ago, I spoke about you as a customer looking at your adoption model or adoption strategy not predicated on release numbers anymore, because we're moving away from those major releases for the reasons I talked about, right? Cost, disruptions to business, time, effort, etc. We're moving away from that. So there, what I'm saying is no plans for a future 9.3 release, unless technological or architectural reasons dictate this. And so you may say, well, what does Manuel mean by that, right? What we mean by that is we don't artificially want to create another release, a major release, because then we go back to the traditional model, the costly upgrades, the risky upgrades, the effort, right? And you go through this upgrade, and then you get to a target release, and then you have you want to adopt new capabilities, but by that point maybe you need to move on to the next thing in terms of company strategy, company plans. So we will evaluate that carefully, and if we have to and we're forced to for those technical or architectural reasons, we will issue another major release. But if not, we're going to stay on 9.2 and we're going to continue investing. So you'll see value there, you'll see new features. The innovation is not stopping, folks. It's continuing for a very long time. Next release, the next slide. So, if we go back to when we made 9.2, JD Edwards EnterpriseOne release that generally available, it was in October of 2015. And with the traditional support horizon of 5+3, right, we would look at a support horizon for 9.2 up until 2023. So what we announced at the Collaborate conference earlier this year is that we're going to a continuous delivery model for the 9.2 release. And that will be everyone's target. If you're on XE or you're on 9.1 or you're on anything in between, your target is 9.2 because that's the continuous delivery release where we're continuing to add new capabilities and what have you. And we've extended that support timeline to 2028. So we've extended it from the 2023 to 2028, so another 5 years. And this will continue to be looked at, like I said, on a yearly basis, and we'll extend it out. So that is 11 years from today. Quite a long horizon path. And notice I've said at least several times, we will continue and we expect to be able to push that out forward in the future. So you should have peace of mind that once you get on 9.2, not only will you have continued support, but you'll have continued innovation to drive your business value, your digital transformation efforts, and so forth. Next slide, please. And last but not least, I want to sum it up. And it's like, what's the call to action for our customers, right? We're going to continue investing, right? Make no doubt about it. Let me make sure I make that the focus, right? We're going to continue investing in core ERP enhancements. We're going to continue investing in cloud and enabling JD Edwards for cloud deployments so that you as a customer have choice and control. So there'll be lots of investments in that area. There'll be lots of investments in user experience. So we'll have user experience capabilities that we continue to invest, and in digital transformation capabilities within JD Edwards. So, and our team is hard at work as we speak on the next, feature pack or updates for the 9.2 release. We actually made one available earlier this month. Prior to that, we had one in April, right around the time that we announced this model. So you'll continue to see us go along with this cadence where we announce frequent capabilities. So your call to action is, if you're not on 9.2, is get on 9.2, get up to that release so that you're on the continuous delivery cycle, and then you can adopt these new features as you see new capabilities that you need or which ones are beneficial to your business. And then it's about staying current on 9.2. So that these aren't not major upgrades, these aren't nothing like that. There's little hops to keep you moving forward. And partners like DWS, and I'll hand the presentation back over to David with this now, is he'll talk about some very interesting offerings that DWS has to help you as a customer stay concurrent, get on 9.2, and continuing to be in a good position to adopt our new capabilities, new innovations. So with that covers my section. I will hang around if there are any questions for me at the end of the presentation, but I'll go ahead and hand it over back to you, David.
Okay, many thanks, Manuel. And I'm sure that many of you will have some very good questions for Manuel, so don't forget to use the questions box in your control panel, and we will address those at the end of the presentation. So listen to what Manuel has been saying there. I guess the key messages that I'm taking from these announcements really are that you do need to get current and stay current because there are no more major version upgrades planned, and that future E1 projects as a result of that are going to be much smaller, faster, and smarter, which is going to make your organization much more agile. Now, it's important to understand that with 9.2, it really is a game changer for JD Edwards because it has been built from the ground up with the digital enterprise in mind. And since go live, 9.2 has benefited from a wide range of enhancements. As you've heard, Oracle has established a pattern of releasing not just small updates, but some strategic enhancements and entirely new modules. And in fact, there have been over 160 product enhancements to 9.2, including things like the Internet of Things Orchestrator, Customization Workbench, Project Forecasting, the Internet of Things Studio, and enhanced mobile applications, and many, many more. Now, the important thing here is that the digital enterprise is one that embraces the pervasive use of digital technologies that are both location and device independent. More than that, it is a fundamental change in business process and policy, a change in what we do and how we do it. It's about digitizing your operations, not just for power users, but for everyone, including partners and customers. It's about digitizing process, collecting more data so you can make better decisions, and becoming more agile. The concept of the digital enterprise is more than simply a commitment to using less paper around the office. If an organization is to embrace digitization and make the most of the benefits it offers, digitalization must permeate every aspect of the business, starting with the back office. The transformation for many organizations begins not with what they do, but how they do it. And although many tasks are digitally enabled, it doesn't make them truly digital. Manually inputting and checking data on a PC or tablet, for example, is still a manual task. A truly digital enterprise can expect to realize significant process improvements and efficiencies. The automation of repetitive or time-consuming tasks can both free up technical resource for more value-added activity and de-risk the business and de-risk the process by eliminating human error. Modern businesses exist in a world that has become increasingly connected. From remote Internet of Things monitoring devices to unified communications and collaboration between mobile and office-based employees. Operating in a big data environment presents both challenges and opportunities because data might be big, but it's not clever. Big data needs to be gathered, consolidated, transferred, stored, and processed efficiently if it is to add greatest value to the business. Ultimately, it is the transforming of information to insight and insight to actionable intelligence that supports better decision-making and is the aim of the digital enterprise. Mobile working has become a way of life for most organizations. The JD Edwards mobile value proposition has been a core component of recent releases, bringing the power of JD Edwards to the point of process and extending functionality to field-based employees. Anywhere, anytime access has put everything from digital data capture to role and location-based applications at the fingertips of mobile and remote workers, whether they are leveraging corporately owned devices or using their own. JD Edwards' concept of low-code, no-code supports the digital enterprise by delivering flexible cross-application integration, enabling organizations to run their business the way they want. Less disruptive change events are likely to lead to greater levels of adoption, have less impacts on IT resource, and simplify the upgrade process. They're also likely to require less user training. By getting current and staying current, digital enterprises can make better, faster decisions. Now, I thought at this point it might be interesting to take a look at what Oracle was saying about the benefits of Code Current a year or more ago, when DWS ran a Code Current webinar jointly with Oracle. Now, Oracle presented a number of reasons why they recommend users should stay Code Current once they've upgraded to the current release. I'll now summarize the key reasons that they gave a year or so ago. Firstly, you'll reduce your risk, as old system components such as databases and operating systems are no longer certified or supported, and new security threats cannot be addressed on these old environments. Whereas updated system components, including databases, hardware, operating systems, internet browsers, language compilers, and enterprise security threats are all addressed in new releases of EnterpriseOne. As an aside, IT and cybersecurity has been a hot topic in the news over the last month or so, with the global cyber attacks on IT operations in 100+ countries. But this is not new. IT security has been a regular hot topic since the Sarbanes-Oxley Act on corporate governance came to the fore some 15 years ago. You can reap the rewards by taking advantage of thousands of enhancements that have been driven by industry SIGs, and you can deploy new functional modules built in cooperation with other EnterpriseOne customers. You will probably appreciate that Oracle has invested billions of dollars in research and development and has delivered many new technologies, including SOA, modern middleware, business services, and enterprise management. By upgrading and staying current, you can benefit from Oracle's ongoing investments. End users don't like using what they perceive as old-fashioned technologies, as they feel it could be career-limiting working for a dated company. Keeping your E1 system up to date and deploying the latest exciting technologies will help you retain your top talent. If you remain on older releases of EnterpriseOne, you're preventing your users making use of the latest mobile devices like smartphones, iPads, and tablet PCs that they take for granted outside the workspace. The latest versions enable your users to also utilize these latest devices whilst at work. If you don't keep up to date, you may no longer satisfy the constantly evolving local country or regional tax and regulatory requirements. Being code current ensures you should always be able to meet the latest tax or regulatory rules in each country of your operations. And the longer the gap you leave between upgrades, the more complex, more costly, and more disruptive to the business they become. By remaining code current, not only is each upgrade far simpler, but you are able to react quicker to benefit from the latest enhancements. Now, all these enhancements combine to produce better and more accurate reporting, more productive users, and lower ongoing operational costs to really help maximize the return on your EnterpriseOne investment. Now, that's what Oracle was saying a year or so ago. So to check Oracle's claims, DWS is conducting our own independent research amongst more than 100 JD Edwards EnterpriseOne customers. Not only does our research support Oracle's claims, but the benefits realized by those who adopted a code current policy scores even higher than the perceived benefits from those who have not adopted such a policy. And that's really good news for Oracle and its customers. So what are you waiting for? For years, JD Edwards customers have wrestled with creating and selling the business case for an upgrade. For many customers, an upgrade project represents a big project with insufficient business benefit. With the 9.2 extensive support announcement, the upgrade business case problem changes dramatically. As you've heard from Manuel, 9.2 is the code line that Oracle is committing to. They're committing to support it at least until 2028 and will only announce or release 9.3 if they're compelled to do so. This means there may never be a 9.3 for which customers can wait. The case to get to 9.2 sooner rather than later, therefore, is stronger than ever, particularly in light of Oracle's plans for continuous delivery and all the great things that Oracle has been releasing since 9.2. So if you're going to upgrade to 9.2, or if you are already on 9.2, we thought it would be interesting to try to understand what obstacles need to be negotiated to make your projects easier and better. Now, when DWS conducted our research amongst, as I say, more than 100 JD Edwards customers, we wanted to understand if the main reasons for not adopting a code current policy was due to bad experiences from previous upgrades. Now, although the differences in the experience are noticeable, they aren't as significant as you might expect. So we asked the question, what is preventing you from becoming code current? Among the responses, there was qualitative data to explain the reticence to move to a code current strategy. Some organizations were content to adopt a hybrid strategy, staying code current for payroll but only applying ESUs where failure to do so might impact on the business. Conceptually, there was an understanding of the benefit of code current, but other priorities always got in the way, or the net effect of continuous retrofitting was perceived to be greater than the one-off effort associated with an upgrade. Respondents also frequently referred to the perceived time, expense, and disruption to the business due to the number of custom objects in their code. The question is, how many of these customizations are still in use? Equally important, is the ability to establish how many of these custom objects would be affected by the upgrade. If you could clearly see the impact, the reduction in testing effort alone would be significant. Now, the biggest single barrier to upgrading or staying co-current appears to be the time and effort required for testing. This is not all that surprising, considering somewhere between 25 to 40% of the upgrade or change event effort is dedicated to testing, with some customers reporting that testing can actually account for as much as 65% of the total upgrade effort. What is surprising, though, is the number of organizations that are still reliant on manual processes, something like 80%. With the overwhelming majority of organizations resorting to manual testing, it's easy to see why it's become such a barrier. So this begs the question, why aren't more businesses utilizing test automation? When we analyzed the use of testing software amongst JD Edwards' install base, we found that market penetration for even the most well-known solutions was low. The Hewlett-Packard Quality Center was the most recognized solution, but only 14% of the base were making use of it. There appears to be a shortage of recognized testing solutions for JD Edwards outside of HP and Oracle's own Oracle Application Testing Suite, or OATS as it's more commonly referred to. There was little or no visibility of a flexible, scalable, affordable test planning and automation solution. As a market leader in testing solutions, you might expect the adoption of HP to be greater, but the price point for the solution places it outside the comfort zone for many smaller organizations that are typical of the JD Edwards customer base. Software testing, though, is not without its own challenges. The attitudes towards test automation are remarkably similar, whether the organization has previous experience of the solution in question or not. When we looked into why organizations have negative experiences, we found that the need for complex code changes and the complexity of the testing process itself were among the principal issues. Some of the negative experiences relating to testing solutions were surprising, given that test automation is designed to save time and make things simpler. So we asked the same users what they would look for in the ideal test automation solution for EnterpriseOne. Now, price, it seems, will always be a factor, but the research clearly points to strong demand for a solution that makes test scenario planning and execution simple. It's also obvious that users want a solution that can separate those objects that need testing from those that don't. After all, why would you waste time and resources on testing something that doesn't actually need testing? So, analyzing the JD Edwards testers' wish list in a bit more detail, we've come up with a list of criteria that the ideal EnterpriseOne test automation system should meet. Firstly, it should be designed specifically for and integrated with JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. Simplicity is key. It should enable even non-technical users to create, edit, schedule, and execute tests as quickly and efficiently as possible. The test scenario should be easy to update and edit, and it should provide real-time status updates of tests that are planned or have been completed. The test results, the reports, and data analysis should be simple and intuitive, and if a test fails, it should be simple to identify and carry out remedial measures. And it should provide granular management information if you require more detailed analysis. Now, there are various research reports that relate to software testing effort as part of overall development efforts. One of the more recent ones that has been published by the Kathmandu University in India, they state that it is well known that software testing is a major cost component in software development projects, typically 25 to 50% of the total costs. As I've already mentioned, we've heard from some JD Edwards customers that testing can actually account for some 65% of the total upgrade effort or uplift effort. So anything that can be done to reduce that effort will prove highly beneficial if you are to maintain a constant code current approach. Now, clearly, there are some major challenges to be addressed if you're going to reduce the testing burden and remove the major barriers to keeping your code up to date. So I will now drill a little deeper into some of the key challenges and considerations when it comes to the functional testing of your EnterpriseOne upgrade, code current event, or even your own custom development project. Clearly, the first challenge is to identify just what needs testing and what does not. Analysis carried out by DWS on various electronic software updates, or ESUs as they're more commonly known, it shows that some upgrades may only impact 5% of your total custom objects. If you're able to analyze your code to identify just what needs testing and what does not, that can make a significant reduction in the testing effort required. The next challenge relates to making sure your library of test scenarios or cases is up to date. This will be dependent on the analysis that identify what has changed and what has not. And you will need to identify which objects add totally new functionality that offer opportunities to perform some business processes in a different and more efficient way. These new processes will require new test scenarios to be created. For any objects that have been impacted by changes Oracle has made, you'll need to either modify any existing test scenarios you've created previously or create new test scenarios if you don't have an existing test script or model. Even if you do have an existing test script for whatever test solution you're using, how easy is it to modify those tests? How easy is it to test the changes you've made to those scripts? After all, a test script often requires highly technical test programmers to program the test scripts, so they need to be tested too. And it's quite common to find that existing tests can be extremely difficult and time-consuming to update, even to cope with quite simple changes, even like things like the user interface. You also need to consider what resources do you have available to help create the test scenarios. Are you using a testing tool, for example, that requires expensive and scarce specialist test engineers to develop the scripts required? Or are you relying on manual testing that requires many key end users to manually run through their business processes on the new version of EnterpriseOne? Either way, testing can become a resource bottleneck and requires very careful planning. When it comes to executing the tests, you need to focus your testing effort on the code that's been affected by the changes in the new ESUs, or even in code you've changed yourselves. As well as identifying what has been affected and therefore needs testing, you need to consider just how thoroughly you need to test each object. Now, if you're relying on manual testing and bugs are identified, these will need to go back to the development team to be fixed. Your developers will want to know exactly what the user did and what happened or did not happen as expected. He'll require evidence like screenshots to help him. Once he's carried out the fix, this will need to be retested. Now, this cycle may need to be repeated several times until the code is performing correctly. And the problem with this approach is that each time it goes back to the user for retesting, it is taking up more of the user's time. So he'll probably be less diligent with the testing on each testing cycle. This could result in bugs creeping through to a live production environment with potentially serious consequences. Now, what about regression testing? This is the process of testing changes to computer programs to make sure that the older programming still works with the new changes. This has been a pretty basic requirement of software testing, as up till now it has not been possible to identify if any E1 custom code is unaffected by changes or not. As the DWS Dimension Focus application identifies all the code that is unaffected by any changes, there should be no need to run tests on the unaffected code, unless maybe you're in a specialist industry like the life sciences or nuclear, where you may still need to complete a complete audit trail to prove that everything has been tested and is still working correctly. Now, with the sheer volume of potential testing that may be required with subsequent cycles of fixes and retesting, it's very important to keep accurate track of what has been tested satisfactorily and what still requires final testing. And this brings me to the classic issue of agile versus waterfall testing. In the waterfall testing model, no testing is started until all development activity is completed. So no usable software is produced until very late in the whole upgrade process. With an agile approach, software is tested as it becomes available and in a usable form, So testing of one bundle of objects can be performed whilst development is carried out on the next bundle of objects. And you may recall that we spoke about how you can create workable bundles of unique objects when we spoke about the execution of your upgrade in an earlier webinar that we ran on upgrading EnterpriseOne best practices. If you didn't attend that and you'd like more information on that, do let us know and we can point you to a recording of those webinars. Now, if we've got the typical life cycle of an E1 system, sometime after the initial implementation, you will experience a major version upgrade. Here, the challenges and considerations I've spoken about regarding test automation will make your quality assurance much easier. There are other tools and services available to help you with the other aspects of the upgrade too, which we've also covered in other webinars. Once you move into adopting smaller, faster and smarter projects, whether it's through an Oracle ESU or your own custom development, there are significant opportunities to make savings through performing a detailed impact analysis to understand just what needs testing and what does not. And this will enable you to prepare a test plan that will reduce your testing effort. It will also enable you to manage the testing process, thereby giving you the assurance that everything that needs testing has actually been tested. And having prepared your plan, then a good test automation solution should further reduce your testing effort. So how much might you actually save? Now, if you are currently conducting testing manually, you will need X amount of time, where X will clearly vary depending on the size of your project. Using the DWS Dimension Focus product, you'll be able to identify just what needs to be tested. Now, I've already mentioned that in some issues we've looked at, we've identified that only 5% of the code was affected, but we've been very conservative that over the lifetime of your use of EnterpriseOne, that only about 25% of your custom code could actually be affected. So by using the Dimension Focus tool, we've already reduced your testing effort by about 75%. Using the Dimension Swift test automation solution to generate your test scenarios and run your tests will typically save you about 40% from a manual test approach, so you only need 60% of your manual effort. But if, for example, Dimension Focus has already identified that only 25% of your code needs testing, your testing effort using the DWS tools is actually just 60% of that 25%. So testing effort is now just 15% of that you would have had to do if you were doing a full manual test. And these estimates are very conservative over the lifetime of your E1 system. You should easily be able to reduce your testing effort by up to 85%, maybe even more. Now, let's explore for a moment how a good test automation solution such as the Dimension Swift test from DWS plays a significant role in enabling you to adopt the new approach to smaller, faster and smarter projects. Let's just review first of all the manual approach that many organizations still adopt for E1. You apply one or more ESUs to your E1 system, or you make modifications to the standard code. In order to test this, you need to manually run through the whole process, recording what you do and documenting the correct results. When you find any bugs, these need to be fixed by your developers. Once the bugs have been fixed, you need to rerun the test manually again, which takes the same amount of time as before, maybe even a little longer, as you may need to check and compare the results you are seeing. You may have to repeat this process several times until the software is clean. Then some weeks or months later, you make some more mods or apply another ESU. Again, you need to manually create or recreate your scripts, document them and the expected results, and report any bugs to be fixed. Once fixed, you then have to manually rerun those tests and check results, and so it goes on, time and time again. Let's show you how it works using a good test automation solution. The Dimension Swift test is integrated with EnterpriseOne, so you have your Swift test and E1 applications open side by side on your screen. Swift test guides you through your options through any business process and enables you to quickly and error-free create your test scenarios. Now, at this stage, it's true to say that there are not significant time savings to be realized, But as SwiftTest keeps track of what the user does and stores results, you don't actually need to spend time documenting your tests. Once any bugs have been fixed, you just resubmit the appropriate test or tests to the test queue to run automatically. And even if you do need to make any changes to your test scenarios, editing your tests is a very quick and easy process. So every time you have to go through this retesting process, you're actually saving pretty close to 100% of the equivalent manual process. So your savings really do start to mount up. And so it goes on every time you make mods or apply ESUs, saving you time every step of the way, again and again and again. Now, the way in which organizations provisions and update software has undergone a radical change in the past few years. The dynamic has shifted away from a major release every 2 to 3 years to smaller, more frequent updates. To some extent, this reflects the experiences we all have as consumers with small app updates automatically pushed to our devices. By eliminating barriers to upgrade, you can avoid the self-fulfilling prophecy of disruption caused by lagging too far behind the current code base. By avoiding an upgrade because you fear it may cause disruption, it ultimately will in one way or another, either because the upgrade effort becomes greater or because the business is failing to make the most of new functionality. So let's address the elephant in the room. 9.2 is here to stay. So if you don't have a plan to migrate in place yet, you should have. And once there, you should then commit to a strategy of staying code current. There's an old adage about how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Now, whilst this makes sense from a theological perspective, what Oracle has suggested with 9.2 going forward is that we eliminate the elephant, or rather 9.2 will be the last elephant you need to eat. A code current strategy should be considered as part of your operational costs associated with JD Edwards and budget allocated each year. Change events should not be restricted to major releases or lengthy projects. By staying close to Oracle's latest code base, organizations can be much more agile and make the most of new features and functionality, saving both time and money in the long term. Adopting this approach allows developers to focus on ensuring any programming changes are quick and easy to upgrade. The quickest potential impact from a code current perspective comes from changes made to standard objects and copies of standard objects. Adopting a best practice approach that minimizes the number of changes made to the standard code base will cause less disruption with each change event. If changes must be made to the standard objects, make sure they are made in a most upgrade-friendly way. A key component of any code current strategy is the adoption of tools, policies, and technologies that ensure all change event projects are less disruptive, making projects smaller, faster, smarter, and they'll be more frequent. And a best practice approach would involve establishing a cadence and rhythm of upgrades that adds greater value to the business as a whole and drives down the total cost of ownership of JD Edwards EnterpriseOne. Now, we've covered a lot of information so far today, so let's just remind ourselves of some of the key benefits of staying code current. You can see on the screen a summary of the main benefits that Oracle has been presenting for more than a year now, and this is supported by independent research carried out by DWS, where the feedback of the benefits from those companies who adopted code current actually outweighed the expectations from those who had not. But as you will gather by now, for the majority of EnterpriseOne customers, implementing a code current policy will involve a different way of thinking. So our overriding messages to you today are that JD Edwards is fast becoming a digital business. If you don't get on board, you will be left behind and be at the mercy of your competitors. With a new generation of test planning and test management tools available only from DWS, the barriers to adopting a code current policy have been removed. You have no excuses now. So get current and stay current. DWS can help you.